The Winchester 1873 lever-action rifle, introduced by the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, gained prominence on the American frontier by offering quick shots and efficient reloads compared to other rifles of the period. Surpassing competitors, the 1873 model was adopted by groups such as the Texas Rangers after 1874, and by well-known figures, including Pat Garrett, Butch Cassidy, Belle Starr, and Buffalo Bill Cody. It is inappropriate to associate the term incompetence with Tom Horn. From his teenage years until his death, he served as an Army Scout, worked as a detective, and served as an interpreter, among other roles that demanded determination and adaptability. In each of these instances, he demonstrated skills that contradict any notion of ineptitude. Born into slavery near Inez, Texas on September 15, 1860, Daniel Webster, 80 John Wallace, came into the world shortly before the start of the American Civil War in 1861. This war, which ended in 1865, resulted in his emancipation. By the time he passed away, 79 years later, he had overcome a lack of access to education, racial prejudice, and the hardships imposed by life on the frontier. July usually records the highest influx of tourists in Yellowstone National Park, a period when many people seek milder temperatures to escape the intense heat. The decision to set aside stretches of land for the collective interest was a historic milestone, formalized when President Ulysses S. Grant approved on March 1, 1872, the law that established the world's first national park. Welcome to the universe of Barney Idaho Bill Pearson, who worked as a farmer, broke wild horses, hunted big game, and performed in shows. He associated with well-known names from the history of the Old West and American politics, such as Buffalo Bill, Wild Bill, Pawnee Bill, Billy the Kid, Deadwood Dick, Luther North, Theodore Roosevelt, and President Calvin Coolidge. Bisbee was once recognized as one of the leading copper-producing cities in the United States, attracting numerous workers and entrepreneurs at the height of mining. Located in southeastern Arizona, it preserves a range of historic buildings that illustrate its industrial heritage, and is home to cultural spaces that reveal the region's transformation over the decades. Vera's routine at the circus resembled the constant movement of a zoo. The first time Vera McInness stepped under the canvas at Madison Square Garden in New York, she drew attention by looking like a large Dresden doll. Mounted on a black horse, she wore a wide skirt that hung almost to the ground, firmly fastened at her waist. Brazen Bill Brazelton, a notorious outlaw in the Tucson area during the 1870s, clashed with a local posse trying to stop him from committing robberies and other illegal activities. At that time, the city was a waypoint for travelers, merchants, and miners, and the streets often brought together stagecoaches, wagons, and pedestrians in search of opportunity. No trip through the American West is complete without a stop in Tombstone, in southeastern Arizona. Founded in 1879 during the Silver Rush, the city became world famous in 1881 after the shootout at the OK Corral. Famous as the town too tough to die, it was once among the most lawless places in the region, attracting people like Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, and the Canton gang. On April 18, 1886, Bessie Kulvin, recognized as the main attraction at Alice Abbott's brothel in El Paso, Texas, decided to put an end to her work. For a year, she had conflicts about extracurricular activities and faced bookkeeping issues that affected her earnings. Tired of dealing with disagreements and a lack of transparency, Bessie chose to leave the establishment to seek a place where she could rely on fairer and safer working conditions. The more ammunition a soldier has, the more he will use. This was the frequent argument among officers, even as the 7-shot Spencer repeater continued in use during the post-war period. In addition to this concern about cartridge consumption, the constraint of a very limited budget caused the U.S. military leadership to delay for years the adoption of a new repeating rifle, still weighed down by the high costs left over from the Civil War. The year was 1907. Edith and her sister Ida Mary had taken up a plot of land about 50 miles southeast of Pierre. In that region, maintaining a property was a challenge because the U.S. government offered 160 acres of land on the condition that the owner live there for 8 months. Instead of treating it as a risky gamble, Edith and Ida Mary committed themselves to staying, setting down roots and devoting themselves entirely to that land. During the era of percussion revolvers, 2 types of frames stood out: the open frame and the solid frame. Each configuration offered specific advantages but also brought some practical issues, influencing the user's choice according to their needs. In the mid-19th century, many manufacturers competed in the market with varied models, but 2 companies in particular achieved widespread preference, being adopted both by the U.S. military forces and by the civilian population. Coffeyville, Kansas was marked by the failed robbery of the Dalton Gang on October 5, 1892. Lawmen and local residents noticed unusual activity and organized to thwart the attempt. The confrontation resulted in an intense shootout that lasted only a few minutes, but was enough to end the assailants' offensive. 4 members of the group died on the spot, turning Coffeyville's streets into the stage of a tragic outcome that marked the definitive end of the gang and entered Old West history. The portrait of John Clum, newly appointed as an agent for the Apaches at the San Carlos Reservation, was captured in August 1874 by the itinerant photographer Dudley P. Flandres, just weeks after Clum's arrival. The image shows the start of his official work, when he took on the responsibility of mediating relations between the government and indigenous communities in the region. In 1876, James Butler Wild Bill Hickok arrived in Deadwood, a mining town in the Black Hills. He traveled the Cheyenne-Deadwood Trail to reach the site, where he would spend his final days. That same year, Martha Calamity Jane Canary, then 24, dressed as a man on several occasions, a practice that drew much attention. Calamity Jane was often portrayed as Wild Bill Hickok's love interest in various books and films. News of the discovery of gold in the Black Hills spread quickly. In 1875, a scientific expedition was formed to investigate the region, led by Henry Newton and Walter Jenney, accompanied by troops under General George Crook. During field activities, the group confirmed the existence of gold deposits. Valentine T. McGillicuddy, who served as a cartographer, produced detailed maps indicating points of interest for exploration, providing fundamental data to those promoting the Black Hills gold rush. Calamity Jane first came into contact with the Deadwood area during the Newton-Jenney expedition to the Black Hills, which studied the land and its natural resources. Later, when General Crook's troops approached the town, she was the one who greeted them. Throughout her life, Calamity Jane visited Deadwood repeatedly, becoming a well-known figure in the region. In 1876, she witnessed the arrival of James Butler Wild Bill Hickok, an event that left its mark on Old West history. Billy Hutchinson spent an entire year bringing his entertainment project in Tombstone to life. He planned every detail to create a space that would stand out in the town and attract as many visitors as possible. In the first few months of operation, the shows pleased the public so much that Hutchinson amassed tens of thousands of dollars in profit, surpassing the income of most local businesses at the time. On October 5th in San Augustine, Sam Houston wrote to Isaac Parker stating that armed conflict in defense of the rights, the oaths, and the Constitution of Texas was inevitable. He invited volunteers from the United States to join local residents, offering generous land rewards. Houston stressed that each volunteer should bring an effective shotgun and 100 rounds of ammunition, highlighting the urgency of arriving as soon as possible. Molly Burkhart, second from right, experienced the deaths of all 3 of her sisters under suspicious circumstances. Rita Smith, next on the left, died in an explosion that struck her home. Anna Brown, second from left, was found with a gunshot wound to the head. And Minnie Smith, far right, died from a condition described by doctors as a peculiar wasting disease. The Western genre, whether in novels or films, reflects the events and conflicts that shaped United States history. For much of the country's development, the West occupied a central position in the formation of national identity. Frederick Jackson Turner, considered one of the main American historians, argued that the character of the United States and its notion of exceptionalism emerged during the process of frontier expansion, which began in Jamestown and extended to Wounded Knee. In 1804, explorers Meriwether Lewis and William Clark identified water sources with limestone content, which later travelers used to fill barrels during their journey westward. Noting this resource's potential for beverage production, Ben Holliday, a famous Mormon merchant and overland stagecoach magnate, founded a distillery in the mid-1850s near Weston, Missouri, taking advantage of the unique quality that limestone water gave to whiskey. Dapper Bat. Although he may have worn wide-brimmed hats when out in the field, Bat Masterson was most frequently seen in a derby hat, as documented in many old photographs. This preference for derbies became a defining feature of his image, shaping how he is remembered to this day. The August 12, 1874, edition of the Bismarck Tribune, a newspaper in Dakota Territory, featured the headline "Gold" on its front page, announcing the discovery made by the expedition to the Black Hills, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. The report highlighted the importance of the find, which quickly drew people interested in exploring the new source of wealth. Joe Horner began his path working as a cowboy, taking part in confrontations against indigenous groups and also engaging in illegal activities. He then moved to Wyoming and decided to assume another identity, adopting the name Frank Canton and starting to work as a range detective. From that point on, he became known exclusively as Frank Canton. Over the years, he served as a lawman in Wyoming, in the Oklahoma Territory, and in Alaska. The Bandit Bard, the story of a former Civil War combatant born in England, who became the greatest poet thief in the United States. His journey began on the busy routes of California during the height of the gold rush. While many were seeking fortune in the mining fields, he traveled from town to town, gathering verses and captivating small audiences with impromptu performances. A few days before Christmas, Schuyler, Al Sieber, and a group of Apache scouts cautiously advanced along the banks of Cave Creek. They approached the Apache camp under the cover of darkness, moving almost imperceptibly among the rock formations. When the first rays of sun appeared on the horizon, they opened fire from their sheltered position, resulting in the death of 9 Tonto members. Many others fled amid the confusion, escaping the encirclement. The Bowie knife, widely associated with American history and culture, had its origins surrounded by different versions and interpretations. The characteristic design, with a long blade and a protective guard, gained prominence after the incident known as the Vidalia Sandbar fight. In that confrontation, Jim Bowie used a knife described as a large butcher knife, drawing attention to the use of this type of weapon. Between 1884 and 1886, at a camp established in Emery Spring in the Parilla Mountains of Cochise County, Arizona Territory, a photograph was taken of a group of 6th Cavalry scouts. In the image, 2 Apache men appear holding rifles and 2 white men are also present, all working together in the area during that period.